On the Track is a web TV show about cryptozoology, natural history, green issues, and whatever else the team feel like making up as they go along. Enjoy.
Jeff, we've got a special anniversary this episode. An anniversary, and I wonder what anniversary it is. Don't tell me. Don't tell me. I want to guess. Let's have a think. Or is it the anniversary of the last appearance of Alan Towers doing a round of the regional news and sport on Midlands Today? No, it's not. Guess again. Oh, is it Sue Beardsmore's birthday? No, not Sue Beardsmore's birthday. Is it is it 40 years since the last episode of Picture Box with Alan Rothwell? No, it's none of them things. You'll just have to wait and see. You can't wait.
Well, I know what anniversary it is, but I'm not telling anybody.
I really like the old credits.
So, what do we have in this episode, Mr. John?
Well, Hennis, we start off in Indonesia, where we learn all about Homo floresiensis, the short man of the forest, the hobbit, and we discover why the CFZ away team, that's Geordie, Carl and Richard, have got a replica Homo floresiensis skull in their hand luggage. And then we go to Northern Ireland, where we learn all about the Dovrachu, and I'm sure I pronounced that wrong, the master otter. And then we come back all the way here to learn some very interesting things about man-eating sharks. So, a fun-packed episode, and guess what? It's a very special number. Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a very special episode of On the Track, because, drum roll please, it is our 200th episode. And because it's our 200th episode, we have a special little something for you all. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday on the track. Happy birthday to us. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name's John Downs. I'm the director of the Centre for Fortean Zoology, and welcome to another episode of On the Track. Twice a week, for about a quarter of an hour on Wednesday evenings and for about half an hour on Saturday afternoons, we bring you a miscellany of hard science, weird shit, and surreality. And if you don't know what surreality is, cop a load of this. But assuming you're all now educated on what surreality is, we're going to get on with the show. But before we bring you the main crux of what's in this week's show, I want to remind you all about our brave boys overseas, because Geordie, Carl and Richard are now in Sumatra But before they left, they recorded a couple of little snippets for the show to explain what they were doing and why they were doing it. Now, people who saw last week's show and who saw last Wednesday's On the Track Extra will recognise the fact that on the stool, which got the Owlman cover painted on it by my darling stepdaughter Shoshana, there is a strange looking skull. Richard, would you like to pick it up? What is it, Richard?
This is a replica of the skull of Homo floresiensis. It was discovered in 2005, around about the time we were in Mongolia, looking for the Mongolian deathworm. But it is a hominin, and it was discovered on the Indonesian island of Flores, which is to the east of Sumatra. It's approximately 50,000 years old, and it's from a small form of hominin that would have stood about 3 feet tall in life.
Carl, I believe it was your idea to have the skull in the first place.
Yeah, I just thought, as we are in Indonesia, in Sumatra, it would be nice to have it there just in case it might be relevant towards the Ronan Coghlan.
Well, I'm quite good at online shopping, but I wouldn't really know where to go looking for a Homo floresiensis skull. So where did it come from, Carl?
Alan Friswell made it for us very kindly. I think, was it me who asked him, Richard, or was it you? I can't remember.
You came up with the idea and I asked him.
Yeah.
Alan Friswell is a friend of ours who worked closely with the legendary stop-motion animator Ray Harryhausen. So he's a bit of a special effects wizard, and he builds props and monsters and other things like that.
So why is the Homo floresiensis skull relevant to what you guys are doing on the island of Sumatra?
Because alongside Orang Pendek, there are stories of a second creature in that forest called the Orang Kardil, or Tiny Man, which is quite distinct. It's smaller than Orang Pendek, it looks more human, it's a lot less hairy, it has long hair on the head, but the rest of the body is naked, and it lives in little tribes and hunts with bamboo spears. Our late guide Sahar said that his father, back in about 1981, was with a friend, and they were trading rice in a remote area of what is now Kerinci Sablat National Park, where one of these little creatures came from the jungle and started eating rice from their pot. So Sahar's father's friend killed it with a parang, which is similar to a machete, and then dozens of these little creatures came out of the forest and stabbed him to death with bamboo spears. And there are still sightings of these creatures today, and they sound remarkably like the Ibu Gogo of the legends of the Nage people and the Laho people of Flores. And Gregory IV, the anthropologist, has linked these with Homo floresiensis. So it could be a relative of Homo floresiensis. Now, Homo floresiensis itself, we know, is a sister group to Homo habilis, which was a hominin that lived up until 1.9 million years ago in East Africa, and until recently we didn't know it had a lineage outside of Africa. Now we know the sister group became Homo floresiensis, and there was another related species, Homo luzonensis, that has recently been discovered in the Philippines, also from about 50,000 years ago, which in evolutionary terms is not long at all. So there could be another one of this group living alongside Orang Pendek in the jungles of Sumatra.
Now, what are we going to talk about today, Ronan?
Well, I thought, though it sounds a bit boring, that we would talk about belief and why people label cryptozoology as a pseudoscience. And
It's a jolly good idea.
because in virtually everything that is not put up by a cryptozoologist, everything online, you will see it is a pseudoscience. And that is not a fair assessment of what it is at all. Should I start talking in a semi-official way now?
Be as semi-official as you like, Ronan.
Right. Now, it irritates me greatly when I see cryptozoology as a pseudoscience, because, first of all, the word science means knowledge, and cryptozoology brings in knowledge if it brings in nothing else. It brings in the knowledge of past species, of hypothetical species, and it does deserve to be called a science. But where I think a lot of cryptozoologists go wrong is they label it as part of the science of zoology. Now, the term science has become fairly, shall we say, categorized, and scientists won't accept anything as being scientific unless it can be brought into a laboratory squirming and kicking, or experimented on, or at least its very existence refuted. Therefore, zoology is covered by that kind of science, and that kind of science doesn't cover cryptozoology at all. The science that does is folklore. Take the okapi, one of the earliest cryptids discovered. Now, when the okapi was merely a legend of the pygmies in the Ituri forest, it was a part of folklore. But once its existence was established and a skin was sent to the Netherlands or wherever they sent it, then it ceased to be a creature of folklore and went out of that science into zoology proper. So that, in fact, I feel that the real scientific ambit of cryptozoology is in the science of folklore, until the cryptid has been established to the satisfaction of mainstream zoologists, and then it becomes a zoological thing. This certainly happened bit by bit with the okapi. It happened with the platypus. The platypus was disbelieved in by many disbelieving scientists because it ran contrary to what they felt were the strictures of science at the time. It was only a piece of folklore, but folklore itself is a science, and therefore it is my feeling that to class cryptozoology as a pseudoscience is totally wrong. It is part of the science of folklore as long as the animal is a cryptid. When it crosses into mainstream zoology, then it is a creature of science. But cryptozoology is never a pseudoscience. Now I can see you're drifting off to sleep there, so
I agree with you totally.
But this business of it's a pseudoscience, I mean, how do you define a pseudoscience? People have, in other fields, you don't have to go into the zoological fields, thought X or Y is possibly true, but they can't demonstrate or prove it in a science laboratory, and then it has turned out to be true. It is speculative science to begin with. It is pure science once it crosses the border. But there is a border between speculative science and what, for want of a better word, I will call mainstream science. But both are sciences. I can feel quite hot under the collar about this because so many websites, so many journals, so many books use the term pseudoscience scathingly. You can almost hear the sneer in their nostrils as they utter the word, and doesn't deserve to be so categorized at all. What do you think of this?
I agree totally, Ren. Okay, Richard, this is a comment that came in from Salvage Monster yesterday on a show we did about Siberian lake monsters many years ago, back on episode 61, and he writes, "I just do not believe anything in that Siberian lake. Due to the cold and its small size, it doesn't seem possible. And over the years I tend to take anything from Russia with a huge grain of salt, especially after having been present when Igor, I think that's Igor Bortsev, made a phone call about an Alma and then spoke to him in front of 60 people. I'm also curious as to Richard's take on the information that the Russian government had encouraged its citizens to produce and publish fake photographs of Bigfoot. I'm unsure if this was for tourism or was it just more disinformation to see how the Western world reacted to it."
Who produced fake pictures of Bigfoot?
The Russian government was encouraging people to.
Well, for a start off, these aren't small lakes, they're remarkably deep. They might not have a huge surface area at the top, but they're remarkably deep. Lake Verota and Lake Lavanika are remarkably deep. Lake Chani is quite shallow, but it's enormous. It's 53 miles by 50 miles wide. I don't think there are any prehistoric monsters in there. I think we're dealing with very big sturgeon or enormous catfish. And you've got to remember that Moscow University, Lake Labanika, a couple of years ago, got something huge on their sonar. And they had a team of biologists looking at it, and they were saying this isn't a shoal of fish, it's one solid animal moving around in there. So there are big animals in these lakes that we don't know about. Whether they're sturgeons, catfish or something else, I don't know. The only way to find out is to do more research. And I would have loved to have gone to all three of these lakes and conducted research, but that's not going to happen until Putin's gone. As for the Russian government encouraging people to make fake photographs of the Almasty, I wouldn't put it past them. I wouldn't put anything past the current Russian government, because they're filth, they're scum. But you've got to remember that right back into the Cold War and the Soviet times in the 1950s, they took it so seriously back then they had a commission to look for it. And people like Boris Prushnev and Peter Smolin and Marie-Jeanne Kaufman were not making fakes.
If you want to support us and help us make more content like these, please press like, subscribe, follow our Facebook page and check out our Patreon.
And as the ghost of Joe Strummer, who's an ever more regular visitor to my little studio, wants me to remind you, always press the notification bell. Otherwise you won't be told when there's a new show to watch.
And that would be an awful pity, wouldn't it?
So, ladies and gentlemen, here we are at the end of another episode. These past few episodes have all been rather odd because we had Carl, Geordie and Richard here for a few days sorting out the last minute things that needed to be done before they left for Sumatra. And in the middle of it, Her Majesty the Queen died. And so you had Richard and the boys rampaging around the house looking for things that they couldn't find, spare trail cameras and things like that, and the nation of mourning for Her Majesty when I was trying to edit 3 episodes of On the Track, and I managed to screw the whole lot up. Everything went wrong. And so now on the Monday and Tuesday after the Queen's death, I am just about managing to put it all together again and to repair all the damage that was done by me being a silly old so-and-so who can't concentrate on things the way he used to be. So, in the future, I think I'm going to play the I am a silly old man card and I'm just going to shout quiet to people all around the household who happen to be making noises when I don't want them to be making noises. Now, I can't get away with doing that. I have my public to think of. And by public, I mean Archie and Squeaky. So, here we are at the end of another show. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll be back on Wednesday, and I have no idea what the Wednesday show is going to be. And I'll be back on Saturday next week, and I've got no idea what that show is going to be either, except I do know there is a bit more from the boys about one of the aspects of the Sumatra trip. But I will be back Wednesday, and I will be back Saturday. And before I go any further, I want to say a big thank you to Carl, Geordie, Richard and Ronan Coghlan for their wonderful input into the show this episode, and I want to say a big thank you to my producer Louis and to my dear old friend and business partner Graham Inglis for keeping me going in ways that probably no human being should be expected to, but hey, that's the breaks. So, until then all, if you're there to watch me, are you listening, McCrinnan? Because I'll be seeing you.